Welcome to Master the Game. I am Juice, and today I am talking to the one and only the captain. But before I get over to the captain, I just wanted to quickly say be sure to smash that subscribe button, hammer that like button if this is your first time here and you like tabletop RPG content. We bring you all sorts of things. We've got live plays of D&D, Pathfinder, and various other games such as Monster of the Week, Palladium books, Dragon Age, Fantasy Age, Call of Cthulhu, you name it, we have it on this channel somewhere. Been doing this for 8 years. We've got, over 1,000 videos, I think, or we're getting close to it. So, yes. Now, with that, the captain, Dave from SS Adventure Productions, feel free to introduce yourself and what you do.
Yeah. Hi guys. I do apologise. It's 1:45 in the morning here, so I'm sort of half awake. But yes, I'm David. I am also known as the captain over on the SS Adventurer. I am the captain here, there, and everywhere, pretty much. So what we do is we're currently doing a weekly night stream, 8:30 p.m. UK time over at twitch.tv/SS Adventurer. The channel itself is being run 100% for charity, and that's now going to be ongoing. It wasn't until I started rebooted the stream that we did this, and it's for a fantastic little local charity to me called Christmas Wishes. And basically what they do is they help families that are struggling over Christmas to get toys, food, and basically non-essentials over the Christmas time. They also do things like a beauty bank, which is a bit like the food banks, with toiletries and makeup and stuff like this for families, sanitary products. And they work around the clock. They're not just Christmas. They work around the clock to do loads and loads of different things. So yeah, they're a great little charity. But predominantly, I am a D&D streamer. I do occasionally do video games on a weeknight if I'm feeling awake enough for it. Being a full-time dad and a full-time carer is not easy. But yeah, that's a little bit about us.
Nice. So, what made you choose this charity? How'd you find out about it, and why that charity?
So my girlfriend's actually a trustee of the charity.
Hmm.
And last year I did a little bit behind the scenes to help them out. And as I said to them, I will always be there to help them. I don't personally want to be a trustee of the charity because it could, if things go sideways, then it screws everything up for them. But as far as helping them out is concerned, last year, honestly, I had no idea what I was letting myself in for. And literally just going into my friend's house where she collects all the presents, and she has a fairly big house. You didn't have room to swing a cat in it. If you did swing a cat, you'd be swinging it into toys and teddies and all sorts of stuff.
Right. That's awesome. So, you mentioned video games, and let's just get that out of the way. But what video games do you play?
So games I play are mostly CS:GO and Overwatch. Occasionally, I'll do a retro games night where I'll pick up a PS2 game or a PS1 game. My go-to generally is the Final Fantasy series. I'm not going to lie; those games have kind of also, ironically, influenced me slightly as a DM as well.
Yes,
because I like that whole fantastical,
the epic, like save the world. Yeah, Final Fantasy VII has molded me with like everything when it comes to gaming for the most part. It's my favorite of all time.
See, I'm a 9 or 10 man.
See, I never played those. I've been meaning to play those for years. I haven't played them yet.
You need to get on it, honestly. Number 10 is number 10 especially because the linear way they tell the story in 10 over the open world side of things, it kind of completely changes the scope of Final Fantasy, but the way in which they tell the story, the way that you don't get sidetracked by all the different side quests in that game is fantastic. Right. And just the general layout of it makes you feel like you're making the decisions of the game. But obviously, because it's a linear game as opposed to an open world game, it's much, much more direct.
Is that the one that is rumored to possibly be an extension of Final Fantasy VII? Like in a
Yeah, they so
they
the
never
fan
confirmed it though.
no, it's a fan theory.
Hmm.
So basically the fan theory is that it's set before Final Fantasy VII, like a
That's what it
thousand
was.
years or something before Final Fantasy VII, and um because there is a character in it, and I believe his name is actually Shinra.
Right.
And he's a techie, and he talks about the flow of life throughout one of the games, and how I think it's Final Fantasy X-2 he's mostly in. But yeah, it talks about the flow of life and things like this in the actual game, but it's never been confirmed nor denied. So
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, maybe I should at least get into that one. Right. So yeah,
yeah,
I love like the Dragon Age series. Like that's one of my favorites. I mostly play sports and stuff, but yeah, I like to dabble with the RPGs. I'm playing Pathfinder Kingmaker right now, and I've
not heard of that
streamed
one,
it
I'll
a
be
little bit.
honest.
It's new to consoles. It was on the computer like a year ago. It was done through Kickstarter, and Paizo licensed their Pathfinder line to it. It's a really cool game. It's a lot of fun. Right now, there's a lot of bugs in the console version. The computer worked them all out over the course of the year, pretty much, or most of them, it sounds like. But on console, there's still quite a few bugs. But it's still a blast to play. So I've streamed like 7 episodes, and I'm meaning to upload them to to YouTube, but I haven't gotten around to it yet.
With all the other things going on.
I do like 4 or 5 streams a week, and
I mean, with all this extra time that we've supposedly got because things not being open and stuff, you'd think
right.
you might find the time.
No, I've taken on a new role of stay-at-home teacher for my son, my 5-year-old, because kindergarten virtual doesn't really work.
Oh no, ours are all back to school now.
Oh, nice.
Apparently, this thing. Let's not get too much into politics, but this potentially lethal virus that's out in the world. Yeah, it's fine for kids to mix in classes of 30. It's absolutely fine. There's no issues there.
They made it in our high school. Didn't even make it to. They were in hybrid. They didn't even make it to back to school, and they had to shut down. And then middle school had 2 days, Monday and Tuesday this week, and they had to shut down because multiple staff got sick.
Oh God.
So like our 9-year-old, we have her in virtual, so she's just home with her teacher online. And then we decided with the kindergartner, probably should just do that at home and not do virtual or send him anywhere. So
Oh yeah, no, definitely easier when they're sort of preoccupied.
yeah, and my wife's working remotely through the new year, so they guaranteed that at her company. So that's nice. And then obviously I actually left my job because they wanted me to return to work in March. No, not March, May. And I was not comfortable at the time with that. I'm considered high risk. I have diabetes. I have other stuff.
Oh
So
yeah.
we decided it just didn't make sense, and so I walked away from it. But we're not struggling yet, so we're doing okay.
Absolutely.
But yeah, enough about that. So how are you spending your time though with COVID? Are you doing okay with all that?
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying to you pre-stream, I found out that my partner of 11 months is pregnant, and we found that out a couple of months back. So, got a baby boy due in February. That is a lockdown baby because I went and lived with her over the course of the UK lockdown. And in that time period also my son came into my care full time because his mother's not very well. So yeah, I mean, it's all been sort of thrown into the mix all at once, and we're like, oh, save us.
Do you live with your girlfriend now?
No, not at the moment. It's a difficult one because, as I say, she's got a child of her own. I've got my own child, and it's being able to find the money to find a place together as well.
Yeah.
Alongside the fact that my son's autistic, her daughter's coming into those teenage years now. And one of our worries is that we throw those two in the mix together, and it's going to be like unleashing hell on earth. I mean, generally speaking, they're very good together. They
Right.
are very good together, generally speaking. But you never know. So it
Right.
is one of those things. It's a suck it and see, unfortunately, and it's all we can do.
My 9-year-old and 5-year-old one, like they go from being best friends and so sweet to each other within 10 minutes wanting to throw each other down the stairs. Like it's crazy how quick it switches, you know? So
Oh,
I
definitely.
oh, there are a lot of times where I just want to escape. And luckily my game room is actually on the other side of my garage. So
You planned that well then.
yeah, unfortunately we're coming up to the cold months and there's no heat in here. So I don't know what I'm going to do over the next 6 months of being stuck in a house with everybody 24/7. But I'm sure I'll still come out here. Maybe it'll keep them out of here even
What?
more.
Well, no. What you do, you just buy a little cage and you kind of just lock them in the garage and you move all the stuff indoors.
I've proposed that to my wife, and she doesn't like the idea of the cage. She's afraid we'll get caught. Not that we'll do it, but she's afraid we'll get caught. No.
Oh, I love it.
No, it's pretty cool. There's like this. This used to be a wood shop, like on the other side of the garage. It's like a 25 by 13-foot room.
Okay.
So it's kind of nice, and I partially finished it in. Like before, this was all like exterior wall, you know, and stuff, and it had like a dripping skylight. It was awful. It needed a lot of work. So, but fixed it up, and now I've got like my man cave. It's great.
Unfortunately, it's the one thing I wish I had the room for in my place is a man cave. But unfortunately, it's a 2-bedroom flat effectively. But the one thing about my place is my garden has more square footage than my flat does.
Oh no, my
So
room right here is almost bigger than our yard.
so yeah, no. My garden is huge in comparison to the floor space inside. It's weird.
That's
But I
awesome.
love it.
Yeah, half of our yard is a garden that my wife's been working on. We inherited it. It's pretty cool. So let's talk about your show. So how long have you been doing the show?
So the show, well, my actual channel has been running on and off for, oh Christ, when did I start? Would have been about 2014, 2015, something like
Okay.
that. But it's been on and off because I've had various mental health issues. I've had issues with my ex, who, as I said earlier, is very, very unwell. Having my son now full time as well. It's kind of made it almost like a balancing act. But the fact that I actually waited till he came into my care to reboot the channel means that I was better able to obviously prepare myself and schedule myself in appropriately. Which is why at the moment I'm only doing one scheduled night a week, despite my channel saying otherwise. I really need to redo that. But the whole thing itself, I absolutely love my players. I love my game. The first 2 sessions have been an absolute blast. Unfortunately, again, as I expected, there's been sort of issues with my own personal life interfering with it. Because it's a Sunday night and on the Monday I've got the school run, so I've got to be very, very careful about how late I stream and things. But no, ultimately, we are streaming D&D 5th edition. It's a homebrew campaign called The Mask of Mazra, which is the one campaign I've run that I've been the most prepared for. Because a lot of the time I'm an improv DM.
Nothing wrong with that. I know how that goes.
As I say, this is the one I've been most prepared for. My players currently have 5 active quests in their to-do list. Because I always like to make sure that my players, so it's a bit sandboxy in the sense that my players can go and explore the world how they want to and how they see fit. There will always be a main quest alongside the side quests. And the longer it takes them to do the main quest depends on where the story goes, because it could twist, the longer they leave the BBEG up to his own little schemes and tricks, the worse it's going to pan out for them in the long run. They don't know this much.
It's like the world moving in the background, basically.
Oh yeah, always moving. And my players are also very, very well aware that I run the game on lethal. Because in my view, yeah, prime example, you go to Australia, say for example,
Nope.
and
You had to pay me to go there. There's too many poisonous things there. Stick that in. Sorry, my Australian friends. Michael, the Dead Aussie Gamer, and all those other guys down there I know. I can't do it.
I'd love to go to Oz. I'd absolutely love it. But just as an example, you set off out into the outback, okay? First time you've ever set foot into the wilds ever. As you go deeper and deeper into the wilds, it's not going to get more and more dangerous. The minute you set foot into the wilds, it's immediately life or death situations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't gradually ease you in. So I plan my worlds in a similar way. If my players go off the beaten track, you know, for all they know, they could encounter a banshee, say, for example. If they go the wrong way, they could encounter, you know, I mean, at the moment, they're only level 2. So they could be encountering CR 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Right.
And
I'm the same way. Like, there's a dragon there. Like,
yeah.
Or whatever. Not at that extreme usually, but I have done that.
Lost my train of thought. But yeah, and the way I ease my players and make them realize just how lethal this world is, you can check out the first session on YouTube. It actually opens up with a combat, and I like to really dig through the monster manuals, the Tome of Foes, and all the monster codex, and I like to find the interesting encounters, not your everyday goblins, kobolds. Yeah, everyone loves them, everyone knows them. But Oblex, I've gained an unfortunate, unhealthy obsession with the Oblex and the way they operate.
One? Like that red liquefied, is it that one?
Yeah.
From
Tome of Foes. It's in Tome of Foes, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I'm
looking at my shelf right now, trying to think. Mordenkainen's, yeah.
Yeah, Mordenkainen's Tome.
And that was done by a fan, I believe.
Yeah.
But there was like an interesting story about that.
You've got the Oblex spawn, you've got the adult Oblex, and then you've got the elder Oblex. I think that's how it goes. And I've kind of rejigged them slightly to how they work, because in the Tome of Foes it says that they absorb the memories, and when they've absorbed enough, they can then take on form of the memories of someone.
Yep.
But I've made them a little bit more psychic, and in order for them to transform from one stage to the next, they kind of have to merge together, and then spend an incubation period before they can progress. So it's a bit like the lava type model, you know. So you have the starting, then you have the larvae, then you have the next stage, then another sort of carapace, and so on and so forth.
So are you going to weave these through your whole campaign just because you love them so much?
Oh yeah, I mean they were in session 1, and my players went, holy fuck, how do we deal with this? We've no idea. We nearly lost a player session 1, and the rest of them went, no, we're running away from this.
That's great.
Because although they're only CR quarter, the challenge rating is a quarter. In a pack, these things are bloody scary.
Oh, I wouldn't have even thought to use them in a pack. No way.
then put them in an ambush setting, so that so the way the campaign started was they were with a traveling caravan. They'd been traveling with this caravan for a few days. Overnight, the caravan's been attacked by something. The players wake up, they're the only ones been left untouched. Otherwise it'd be a very short campaign. And next thing they know, they're being surrounded by these green little ooze creatures
Right.
that are sort of semi-sentient. They don't necessarily say anything, but all they can hear is the groans and moans of the recently departed. And they're scary, nasty little buggers. I mean, their damage is like one. Hold on, let me get the book out, and I'll dig it out.
Yeah, go for it. Cameron, you should definitely use a strategy guide. I mean, that's what I would do. Uh, Although you might want to play it on hard mode and not do that, you know? And then you just discover things and you will amaze yourself at what you'll figure out about that game. So that's what I would do if I were you, Cameron. And I'll ask that question in a minute.
What's that? Do you use more theatre of the mind or more maps and? I use a very, very even combination of both. I do design my own maps. I do design. I've even commissioned a few little projects with like world maps. I absolutely love my. I don't know if I can somehow flip my camera to be in my.
It's weird. I've had issues with trying to give people access to share stuff. I don't know why I'm not able to.
Yeah.
Um,
But I mean, if you go onto my channel, you can see you can all go onto the YouTube. You can see the sort of maps and things I use, and I create them all from scratch, and literally I try and make them. I try and make them geographically believable, but twist it somehow. So, for example, if I do mountain ranges, if I do mountains, they normally don't have the what's known as the rain shadow on one side.
okay.
Excuse me. You know, if I do, it depends really on what I want the world to read. If I want the world to read in a certain way, but I mean, one of the unfinished maps that I never got around to doing because before COVID, before I had to cancel my when I was last streaming, I was working on a book that was going to be filled with fantasy maps and fantasy worlds to varying degrees of detail. So if someone just wanted a basic landmass, they'd have it with like rivers and mountains and whatever. If somebody wanted a full detailed map for them to use, there could be towns placed, maps of the towns, maps of, and this is something I do plan on trying to do again. But at the same time, it's a lot of work. I mean, this book that I'm talking about would easily be 400 or 500 pages long. It's something that a lot of people said they would invest in if it was done. But it's just about getting the work done and then finding the right price. And
that's a lot of mapping and time and everything.
Well, to give you an idea, when I create a world map that is primarily just land, well, a complete sort of continent, one continent will take me the better part of 6 hours.
Yeah.
If I'm doing a world map, which I've only ever done once, because of how long it took me near on a week, and that's 6 continents, with the varying terrains, labels, the works, and that took me nearly a week on its own.
Oh yeah, I've mapped part of my world. Originally, my friend Nate from WASD20, he does mapping videos and stuff. He also has a company that he does commissions. But he, one of the first maps he streamed while doing about 5 or 6 years ago was my world. And it was something I had given him that I had mocked up in Photoshop, and he went and did his personal touches and everything. It looked way better. And then recently I was like, I need to get back to finishing mapping my world. It's because I have like an overview of a big portion of it that I did in Photoshop, and I just use like Skyrim stamps or brushes. So I could stamp like this is a city, this is a forest, all throughout it. Just so I had an idea. But now I'm doing better with it.
So I'm really upset with myself. I lost one of my email accounts, which had been linked to a OneDrive with all my D&D works on it.
Oh no.
And one of the things on there was the continent map for the current campaign.
Hmm.
Thinking I had it safe and saved and everything else, I started this campaign and then I started looking for this continent map and I went, um,
Yeah.
I've lost it. So now I have a quarter of a continent, which is more than enough if I wanted to run a whole
Yeah.
campaign in one corner of the world. But the idea of my
Not if
campaigns,
you're a Final Fantasy fan. You can't just stick in a corner. You got to
yeah,
do the whole thing.
exactly. And this is what I was about to say. My player, I like to do the traveling. I like my
Mhm.
players to be able to explore.
How fleshed out are the creatures in your world? Because that's something
Um,
for me, I'm not good at that yet. So I feel like some stuff just comes off as very vanilla, and I'm trying to get better about that. So that's why I'm
so
curious about that.
cultures, the way I've done it this time, I mean, again, like you, I tended to sort of lean towards the vanilla, sort of
Yeah.
what everybody knows, with little twists, like there might be the odd good goblin and there might be the odd good orc and things like this.
Hmm.
Um, and but what I've done now, if I get my OneNote document up, I also highly recommend for anyone looking to DM doing anything like that, use OneNote. Honest to God, it's a
Yeah.
lifesaver.
I I use
It's
I use that. I've started using just Google Docs instead. But I
yeah.
used to use OneNote. That was great for some of my world stuff. And then
Um,
there's
one
World
OneNote's great
Anvil.
for OneNote's great for world stuff. It's
Hmm.
free for the most part. It's you can organize yourself, you can link yourself here, there, and everywhere. I must admit, I did have a look at World Anvil, and it kind of intimidated me a little bit.
Oh,
Um,
really?
so
You
I kind of
you got to dive into it a little bit and play around, but the amount that you can put into it before you have to pay is kind of nice. I'll admit right off the bat, I am an affiliate, but I don't like sell it to really
yeah,
anybody. But I really like World Anvil. I've got
yeah.
some of my world in there for my BlackRock campaign. I use the same world for all my homebrew games, but I haven't put in all the stuff from previous campaign. Like, there's a lot I still want to add to it, and I want to do like the timelines. I love that it keeps track of your timelines for you, and just it's so
See,
quick and
See, a
nice.
lot of that, I love the sound of it.
It's beautiful.
The problem for me is I've already got like at least a quarter of my world mapped out in OneNote, and
Hmm.
it would just be the transposing of it that
Hmm.
would be a massive headache. Because I already have something like 100,000 words
Hmm.
of detail in OneNote.
Right.
But yeah, going back to the Oblex spawn very quickly. So these are the stats just for the spawn. Bearing in mind it's CR 1/4. So its strength is 8, dexterity 16, constitution 15, intelligence 14, wisdom 11, charisma 10. Okay. Its
Hmm.
saving throws: intelligence +4, charisma +2. Immunities which are virtually never seen in low CR creatures: blinded, charmed, deafened, exhaustion, and prone. Blind sight, 60 feet, passive perception of 12, challenge 1/4.
This is the spawn, right?
Yeah, this is just the spawn.
I opened it on D&D Beyond so I can look at it with you at the same
Okay,
time.
yeah. Amorphous. The Oblex can move through a space as narrow as 1 inch wide without squeezing.
Hmm.
This is the only weakness to it: aversion to fire. If the Oblex takes fire damage, it has disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks until the end of its next turn. Its attack, and this is insane for a CR 1/4 creature. Okay, melee weapon attack, +5 to hit, reach 5 foot, one target, hit 1d4 +3 bludgeoning damage,
Yep.
plus 1d4 psychic damage.
Psychic damage. The one damage a barbarian can't get resistance to.
Exactly. And when you throw like 6 of these things at your player, all in different areas around them,
Right.
um,
This
both
just
times,
shows that the CR system does not work in D&D. Like, I just want to throw that out there. The
yeah,
CR
yeah, yeah,
system is junk. I like
yeah.
5e. The
I
CR
mean,
system doesn't work.
the CR system is a very good rough guide,
Sure.
but it's not the be all and end all.
No,
I
I
mean,
ignore it
I've
completely
had,
when I run games. I don't even do anything with it. I don't do
um,
XP. So, like, my games are
yeah,
all like, hey,
I,
we've been doing this for a while. You level up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm exactly the same. I prefer
Yeah.
milestone leveling over XP leveling. And the reason being, and I'll tell you why,
Mhm.
is because when I first started DMing, I started on AD&D.
Yeah.
Um, I played a game with a DM who nearly completely put me off the game because he was a railroad DM in a big way.
Mhm.
If you did something he didn't like, go, no, 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 you can't do that. You don't do that.
Yeah, that's no
Something
good.
is another example of this. We just fallen through a portal or something,
Mhm.
and this female figure appeared in the distance, and I was playing the bard, and I said, and he gave me some information during the transition before we woke up,
Mhm.
and I said to him, right, first thing I'm going to do is stand up and grab my loot. He goes, no, 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 no. You tell the other characters what you've seen first. I said, excuse me, no,
So,
I grabbed my loot first.
that person should go into
Bard,
video game design.
Bard, Battle Instinct, hello.
Hmm.
But yeah, I stepped away from that campaign, and it nearly completely put me off D&D completely.
Did you give that person
Um,
feedback later on, or just you called it?
he was the kind of person that wasn't going to change his ways.
Sure.
You could
Gotcha.
tell just from the complete, absolute way he was.
Hmm.
And I mean, it wasn't the only incident, and there were several. And I just thought, oh no, I'm done. And I just walked away. I just left the game.
Yeah.
Normally, if there's an issue, excuse me, I've got a bit of a chest infection.
Uh-oh.
Um, so normally I will approach someone if there's an issue, whether it be a player or a DM. If there's an issue, I'll sit down and talk with them. But when you can see someone is just so set in their ways, they're never going to back down. They're never going to listen to your concerns. It's a waste of time and energy to do it. Obviously, always try and resolve your issues, but it's not
Right.
always possible. And, it's sad because it does. If, with newer players or lesser minded people, they go, oh, sod that. If it's always going to be like that, I'm not going to play.
Hmm.
But anyway, after that very, very horrible incident, I went, do you know what? It'll be really nice to run my own game and then I can run it however I like.
Yeah.
So I jumped straight into DMing with very little experience with the AD&D 2E system, which is not the easiest system in the world. Thaco, for a start, is confusing as hell.
Thank you. I'm going back to play Beckme D&D in a Tuesday campaign as a player, and my wife started with second edition D&D, which I think is the one you're referring to when you say
Yeah.
AD&D second. So yeah, she started with that, and so she's always like, "No, Thaco's easy," and everyone tells me it's easy. She made it so much more confusing for me compared to the new DM, my friend Roll Stats, that's his YouTube channel, who's going to be running it on Tuesdays. We're playing Keep on the Borderlands, and he's like, "No, it's really easy. Like whatever your to hit is. So like if your Thaco is like, I don't know, I forget, like 18, you subtract it from the number or something. I don't know, but it makes sense when he tells me. So and I remember it for the night. So we're all good." JJ, we're talking about AD&D second edition at the moment, but we're
Yeah.
mostly 5e. Mostly 5e.
Yeah.
That's what Captain Dave here, runs for his group on his Twitch channel.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, I mean, as I was saying, the Oblex, I absolutely love them. They're by far one of my favorite monsters. Another one that I came across actually that I'm going to be playing around with is the Measle. It's
the
another
what?
modern. The more
Liesel?
is Yeah, it's another Mordenkainen's creature. And these guys, okay, one of their abilities, Shadow Teleport. The measle, any equipment it is wearing or carrying, and any creature it is grappling, teleport to an unoccupied space within 500 feet of it,
Oh, nice.
provided that the starting space and the destination are in dim light or darkness. The destination must be a place the measle has seen before, but it not need be within the line of sight. If the destination spaces are occupied, the teleportation leads to the nearest unoccupied space. Any other creature the measle teleports becomes cursed by Shadow for an hour. Until this curse ends, every undead and every creature native to the Shadowfell within 300 feet of the cursed creature can sense it, which prevents that creature from hiding from them.
So I have the book. I also have D&D Beyond, and I'm not familiar with most of these monsters, to be honest. Like the Obelix I was.
Yeah.
The Measle, the Mazel though.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't remember reading this or it standing out.
So,
it's been a long time since I've
There you
looked at
go. That's what the little guy looks like. They're supposedly CR1, but they are nasty little buggers. So I only threw one of them in my players just to see what would happen, and they absolutely steamrolled it. Mostly because its teleport wouldn't recharge, but there we go.
I was trying to share my screen because I could show them, but yeah, the measle's pretty interesting here too. Yeah, like I feel like the monsters in Mordenkainen's are more powerful than they're supposed to be. Like,
oh, definitely.
like if you look at the Dungeon Master Guide or the original monster manual, the CRs are consistent, right? Like what it says they should fall into. When you get to Mordenkainen's, stuff is a lot tougher than what it's supposed to be for those CRs.
I think part of that is because they wanted it to become more of a challenge. Because I think Wizards were aware of the problems that 5e has, and that's in the survivability rate of the encounters and things like that. So they wanted to toughen them up a little bit. This is just me, like spitballing.
Have you experienced that and thought your players are really powerful compared to what you throw at them? I don't experience that.
So when I first started DMing 5e, bearing in mind I came from AD&D, which is very much rocket tag a lot of the time.
Yep.
I mean, I have a running joke with one of my friends. He's played in a couple of my streams. He's played in a couple of my offline games. And no word of a lie, his first character always dies. It is a running joke. Literally, his first character doesn't survive past the third session normally.
That's how I play too.
And so essentially,
it's a Hydra. I don't see why I can't fight it at second level because I try not to metagame.
Oh no!
I'm like, let's fight it.
Okay, so his first character, going back to AD&D, his first character was a ranger type. Obviously they didn't have rangers, so it was a bit of a homebrewed thing. And he was this dark ranger who had this dark past and whatever else. And they were coming up this mountainside, and they noticed a goblin archer perked on top of a little rock, and he was supposed to be a nice little guy. So this ranger decided that, oh, goblin equals bad. I fire at it. So he rolls a nat 1. The arrow goes flying past the goblin. So the goblin retaliates in kind. Nat 20, max damage. Literally rolled nat 20, rolled max damage, double damage. He died instantly.
Yeah.
And that was at level 1.
So I was going to say, everything dies at level 1, especially since you have to roll your hit points in the older editions. And you hit 0, you're dead. That's it. There is no saves or whatever. There's also a lot of there's like save or death type of situations too.
In the older editions, I think they can, like the players can make a medicine check to try and save them and bring them around.
I don't recall that.
But yeah, nothing he rolled was ever going to save him. Like I even as a DM tried to save him because I felt so bad, but it didn't work. He just couldn't roll anything.
Yeah.
And one of my players went, "Okay, this is getting silly now. You know, he's made like 5 rolls now to try and save his character." I went, "Yeah, that's a good point."
So I feel like that still happens in 5e though. Like not most things if you're throwing like quarter CRs, but if you're throwing a CR 1 or higher at a level 1 party, if they crit you, you're pretty much going to die. Like most classes. You know what I mean? Like maybe not a barbarian, but like everything else, if you're getting hit with a critical hit for anything, you're dropped guaranteed. You know?
Yeah, this is the thing, you're dropped, you're not dead.
But most like if they do max damage on a crit, like you're talking about usually a D6 damage. So you're talking about 12 there plus 4. You're talking about 16 points of damage at most things if it's a max damage critical hit at first level.
Yeah, I mean, I had a situation in my last session, which annoyingly I can't upload to YouTube because the technical difficulties I had. But the barbarian actually went down. He was on the night watch. He was like, they'd set up a watch outside the forest, and Simic mutants, which I'm so happy they introduced because they offer so much flexibility. Okay, I'm not using the official. I haven't statted them up using the books or anything, but I'm operating them in a way that I feel they should operate in.
Right.
And they came across the kinder of the 2 tribes of Simic mutants that live in this forest. And one of the elders of this tribe is called Snakebite. And Snakebite is through and through an assassin. She has ratty features, like she's got rat claws, a slightly ratty face, but the rest of her body is like very, very scaly. But her tail is that of a snake head. And if you know your MTG lore, Simics are the creatures that splice their genes into other genes to create new creatures and new breeds, and they tend to evolve and adapt as such. They're a very, very interesting group of peoples, and basically they were just being watched by these 2 members of this Simic tribe, and Barbarian automatically went, I pull out my bow and fire. I went, okay. So I let the first one slide. I said, they just continue to watch you. And then he fired again. And from then on, I couldn't let it slide anymore. So this assassin threw a makeshift weapon at him. Again, critical hit, did more than, because of the more advanced level, did more than twice his HP. I said, right, you go down with 2 death saves. You know, I said, I won't let it kill you outright, but you've got 2 failed death saves on your hand. And he still managed to pull it out. So, you know, that was quite impressive.
So I'm running right now. I've got a couple D&D campaigns. One, I just shared a link to a video my player made of our Tyranny of Dragons campaign. I bumped them all up to level 3, and it's supposed to be for level 1. And we started the campaign. I've already killed one character's familiar twice. I've killed another character, and we're only in we've only done 2 sessions, I think, maybe 3.
Oops.
Oh yeah, it was funny too because in it, I was like, "All right, 24 damage," and he's like, "Oh, I'm dead." I'm like, "Oh, you're dead," and he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, okay, next." Like everyone's like, "Whoa!" So it's really funny. So there's that, and then in my I'm running Descent into Avernus. My wife's character in session 1 died. That was an easy kill. Let's see. My Luke from the DM Lair died. I think he's on his 3rd or 4th character now, and we've played maybe like 8 sessions. Like just drop, and I've dropped the other 2 players multiple, maybe not multiple. I think I've dropped at least the other 2 once. Maybe not actually.
See, before I actually start my campaigns, I warn my players that it is their decisions that decide whether they live or die.
It can be.
Because, well, no, it is guaranteed because they have to know when to run and when to fight. If
Sure.
they run from the wrong encounters, they could encounter something worse. If they fight the wrong encounters, they're gonna die.
Do you use a
And
lot of
the
traps?
I don't. Well, I do and I don't.
Yeah.
The one game that I ran for the longest, which was the Rebirth campaign, and this is the one. This was my main campaign that I ran a couple of years back, and actually, I really, really loved that game. Um, I try to mold the stories around my players and their backstories. And one such trap, let's say, that I incorporated was my one of my players was from a tribe in the north of the continent, and her tribe had been protecting this tree for generations and generations, and she was a human druid. I
Okay.
think she was human, might have been elf. But anyway, so they had a quest to go up and see what was going on with her tribe, because her tribesmen were going a bit crazy, a bit doolally. Some of them coming out more evil, some of them like trying to get away and survive. And as they got there, they discovered that the ancient tree that they had been protecting, they'd actually been protecting a Draco Lich phylactery.
Mm.
So the tree itself was a phylactery of a Draco Lich, and this Draco Lich nearly got free. And I was so disappointed they managed to succeed on that one, because it was such a great character. But the types that I don't tend to incorporate random encounters or random traps
Sure.
or traps for the sake of it. Everything has a reason, everything has a place. Because I find that if you start throwing random encounters, it starts to enter that realm of video game-esque
Hmm.
situations.
So I
We
prep mine. I do random encounters, but I prep it ahead of time. So when I'm preparing what's going to happen, right? I'll look at where the players are at the end of a session, and then I based on that I usually have an idea. And if I don't have an idea, I'll ask the players like between sessions, like, "Hey, where do you think you guys were going next, or what were you thinking of
mm,
doing?" Based on that, I'll put things together, and I will roll for randomness. And part of it is because yes, you have certain things where it's like yes, you want it to make complete sense as to hey, they're going to this place, they need to encounter the bad guys henchmen, the bad guys, whatever. But every now and then, for me, I like to throw a curveball. Curveball would be, oh, you may have come across, say, a nest of bugbears or something that's not
mm,
meant story wise to be there, but it's meant to be like, hey, this is a world that has different
yeah.
things here. So in that sense, I do incorporate some random encounters, and they're still flavored around the setting and things like that. But I try to
Uh,
mix it up like that.
you see, for me, it's a case of I try to make the encounters have meaning,
Hmm.
even if that meaning is just a reminder that this is a wild world. This
Yes.
world is dangerous. You're not going to travel 700, 700 feet or 6 miles or whatever it
Hmm.
is and not encounter some sort of danger.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared unless you're using the trade routes, which are already well protected
Hmm.
normally.
It sounds like we do
Um,
the same thing, but maybe we just have a different philosophy to go about doing that same thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as I say, the going back to your questions of traps,
Hmm. Which I
one,
asked because we were talking about whether like meaningful deaths kind of thing.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
to
yeah.
me, that's like a random thing that you don't really have much control on because you don't run from a trap, it just springs on you. Or like a crit just kind of happens sometimes.
So, the definition of trap for me
Hmm.
personally is an intentional, oh, what's the word? It's been placed intentionally.
Hmm.
The idea of a trap is something to protect, You know, you're trying to protect something, so you're going to set out a trap.
Mhm.
So if say for example my players went into because one of their quests at the moment is to find the hideout of the Face of Avarice, who at the moment the players are believing is one of the sort of more evil guilds.
Mhm.
The Face of Avarice being well known for spreading hate and vitriol and, you know, trying to cause a ruckus. Um, and the say they go down into their lair and they have a magical artifact of great power that they want to defend. Well, they're not just going to rely on their henchmen,
Yeah.
because everyone knows, you know, the good guy springs in and judo chop, you know, the evil henchman. So the traps will be set there as a preemptive thing, so that when the trap is sprung, alert, you know,
Yeah.
okay, somebody's in here. But I don't tend to make lethal traps unless it's part of a puzzle.
Mhm.
So one of my more clever dungeon designs, again, this was in the Rebirth campaign, and the players had found themselves going to a Sahagwin temple. Now, I love the Sahagwin. That, you know, they're a fascinating species,
I think they're
and
cool. Yeah.
if you really read into their lore and how they operate, they're very much a matriarchal society, and that in itself is an interesting concept. But they had to get down into the depths of this Sahagwin temple, bearing in mind they're already underwater, and there were parts that were above water, parts that were underground for whatever reason. And there was a lever switch trap. Now, a lever switch trap is where you have two traps and two levers for each trap. So you've got a total of four levers.
Okay.
Say you've got a trap that deactivates. Say you've got a lever that deactivates trap A. Well, that lever will then activate trap B.
Mhm.
So you have to sort of deactivate the first trap, get past it, and then find another lever to reactivate the first trap and deactivate the second trap.
Right.
So that they might be thinking, oh, you know, great, we've deactivated that trap. Let's keep going. Deactivate the second trap. Perfect. You know, we're through. Great. And then on their way out, they
Hit
forget
lever.
about this,
Yep.
and then they fall into one of the two traps, thinking they've deactivated them both,
Mhm.
because they haven't done enough investigation. They haven't looked into why these traps are operating the way they are.
Mhm.
And, you know, things like that really get your players thinking. The minute your players realize you're thinking along those lines, you find your players become so much more cautious.
Do you like your players being extremely cautious?
Oh God, yeah.
Interesting.
The more cautious my players are, the more rewards they're going to get for being cautious.
Sure. I like
Because
it as a
again,
DM, as a player, when I'm playing in a group and everyone's super cautious. I'm like, I'm the person that's like, I'm just gonna push open the door and like I run up. That's why my character dies, because I do stupid stuff. Like,
yeah.
you know, because I'm not patient as a player. It's
Do you
just
know what?
what's
I
up.
think me and you are almost exactly the same. It's one reason why I cannot. I enjoy playing,
Yeah.
but I struggle to be a good player.
Right.
And by that, what I mean is I have ideas going around in my head all the time about where I want my character to go, I want the story to go, and the things I want to do.
Yeah.
I just don't have the patience to get from A to B in 20 levels. I want to get there in like 2 levels. I'm
Right.
like, come on, come on.
Yeah. Like, well, I played. So I used to play AD&D sorry, not AD&D, second edition D&D with my wife. Her brother DM'd for us, and so we had like just the styles at the table didn't mesh in my mind. Like we always had fun. I still play with them. We play Tomb of Annihilation now that my wife runs. Great times. However, I think back then we were very different. Since then we've kind of come a little bit closer together, but we're still different. My brother-in-law's wife She always plays super cautious. She basically plays almost like clerics and paladins over and over again. And her deity is basically like Jesus. Like, it doesn't matter who she says her deity is, it's always Christianity. Like, if you really look at it, it's Christianity. And so in her mind, it's like, no, you can't kill an innocent thing that you've already like a goblin. No, you can't just kill it. Like, you can't just do that if they don't have a weapon or if we're outnumbering them. Like, that's wrong. And I'm like, it's a game. Like, I just want to kill it. Like, you can't just leave it alive because now it's going to get reinforcements and attack you from behind. Like, so I'm always like, nope, we got to kill it. So we've always had that. And then anytime like there's kobolds, oh my gosh, there's traps. Like, she's always worried about traps or, playing with them. They're very cautious players. And so sometimes you talk strategy and whatever for like 20 minutes just to get past one thing. And then you find out there was no trap or there wasn't like, so we just wasted all this time. And then me as the player, I'm always like, see, we should have just ran through.
See, even if I don't have, even if the players are really planning out a strategy to go down into the bad guys' lair, only to find out that there's no bad guys there. It's not the bad guys' lair. It's just, old Tim's workshop, and he's been there for 35 years, just tinkering with artifacts.
Right.
Even then, they would get a reward for their cautiousness. And I think this is the important thing. It's all very well and good being a DM that creates that sort of sense of paranoia in your players. Is the DM really planning something? Is there absolutely no intention of there being any danger there? That sort of. But I think it's important to reward and remind your players that their cautiousness is well.
Reward the behavior you like at your table. Is what it comes down to. Yeah. I agree with that. I do enjoy when my players read into things way more. It's so hard for me not to laugh at the table when they're like, oh, what if it's this? And they're like just talking about it right in front of you and like all this stuff.
So,
I love it.
When I first started DM, I gained a very notorious nickname. The smiling DM. And the reason for this is because I'm autistic, believe it or not. It's very, very difficult for me to pull a poker face. And I thought the best poker face is the one that causes the most paranoia. And when your DM smiles, generally it means shit's about to go down.
Right.
So you'll see me in my games. I will sit there with an almost permanent smile on my face going, okay, yeah, sure, you can try that. And because it's such a infectious thing, as believe it or not, they say, if you smile for 60 seconds, it releases endorphins in your brain that makes you more happy. It's a psychological thing. So if you're sitting there smiling at your players and they're thinking, okay, is this because we're doing something well? Is this because he's got something planned? And it just creates, again, that extra level of paranoia in your players. And as I say, I don't out to kill my players ever. Right. But I do like that sense of impending doom. I do like my players to feel like they're not being mollycoddled in the world. Like, death is around every corner and could very easily get them. And I mean, this campaign I'm running at the moment is very much steeped in Mayan culture, the Amazonians, the Incas, and all those kind of native early civilizations that were actually very, very advanced. Because one of the things is in this campaign, there are very, very human settlements. Human settlements are only about 2,000 years old. And because of, so the humans landed, they created a small settlement. They then started to expand and build and encroach on the territories of native peoples. and this created conflict, it created war, it created fighting, and then the legend of Mazra was born because Mazra became this figure, and the Peacekeepers Alliance became this figure of, look, we can all live in harmony. If you humans don't expand anymore, then we will leave you alone. We'll be quite happy to trade with you, offer you our secrets, share our tools and resources with you. But you can't expand anymore into our territory, and we will give you the land you have already taken.
Mhm.
And it was that sense of balance in the world. And this is what's happening now, is this peace treaty. Sorry, my TV's just turned itself on. Bear with me.
Oh, no problem.
Oh.
Sharknado. There you go, Cameron.
Thing.
Throw some Sharknado in there.
Yeah, so, and this is what's happening now. So this peace treaty that was created by a man or woman who became a deity, it was a magically celestial binding treaty that is now falling apart, with people forgetting Mazra's story, Mazra's teachings, the belief in Mazra fading, and this is weakening his celestial gifts. And so the peace treaty itself is breaking down, and this is why the campaign is called the Mask of Mazra, because they've heard a rumor that there's this mask that, if shown to the nations, will restore that belief in him. But again, it's getting to that point with them, and at the moment they are very much just trying to build up their cash, build up their inventory through questing guilds and that. And I will throw snippets of the story in that happens as they cross these boundaries in the overall world, so that they can see the story is still unveiling, despite the fact they're not actively following it at the moment.
So do you run all your games in the same world?
No. I've had so each time I run a new campaign, I will either choose a section of the world map that I created, that I mentioned earlier, that took me about 6 days to create because it was just huge. And I'll choose a continent from that world, or I'll go ahead and just create a whole new continent to be explored and expanded upon.
So it is still in the same world. It just might be in a different continent or something.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I mean, this campaign is a brand new world. The continent that they're exploring, because the first world I created was very much a Earth-like world. It was more relatable in that sense. This world is more Jurassic conditions. So it's a lot more tropical all over. It's a lot hotter. Travel is a lot harder because the wilds are still very wild. And also it gives me an excuse to throw in a couple of dinosaurs, because who doesn't love a dinosaur?
I love it. Yeah, my world. So all my games I've run in 5e, if it's not in Forgotten Realms because I'm running a module, then it takes place in the same world. And like, haven't even began to touch like most of the world, that I've written out and stuff. So I'm always kind of interested to hear what people do, and so that's interesting, because I've met people who they're like, nope, it's a new campaign, it's a whole new world, and I'm like, like that's just so much energy like put into like a new world every time, but at least in my mind, because I'm always running new campaigns. So
I mean, I can see both sides of that coin.
Yeah.
So if you've got a pre-existing world with enough land masses and enough continents and enough space to run new campaigns and build up your lore through various campaigns, etc., then fantastic. The other side of that coin is somebody who, especially like myself, who loves that creation phase of their world. I mean, if I don't curb myself, I could easily have 100 maps in a week, because I get so obsessed, so ingrained into learning how things work, how things fit together, how Pangean continents work, how like our world works, how a world mostly made of water would work, and all these kind of different ideas that float about in my mind. And I go, okay, I now have to curb this. Otherwise, I'm going to have 50 campaigns and not be able to play one of them. So I just create one continent now and go, right, this is in this world. And
Right.
if if I want to go back to an earlier world and explore, maybe a futuristic part of that world or a historical part of that world, then there's no reason why it can't be done. But obviously, I like the variety. I like the fact to say, okay, I know what happened in this story. I know where this world's history lies, or exploring a whole new history, creating a new history.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and I could totally see why people might want to create a new world. I've at times been like, man, I would love to start a new world for my next campaign, but then I'm like, but I don't all that work I put into that other one. I want to keep working on that one. That's just how I am, though. But
So yeah, going back to
good.
one of your earlier questions about how much work do I put into like the what was the word you used? The civilizations. So the way I've actually mapped it out in this campaign, because this is the first time I've ever done it this way.
Yeah.
So the thing with running everything in one world I didn't like was that when the players want to change that world, it messes everything up. Yeah, you can adapt, but sometimes you get that creative guy. Yeah, this is it. You see, one of my theories is to create a half-baked world. So when you're in the design phase of the campaign, leave towns and villages unnamed, leave leaders unnamed, leave gaps in your map intentionally. Don't give everything to your players,
Right.
Because the early days of exploration, we mapped very, very poorly. I mean, you look at a map of England in the 1500s and compare it with a modern day map of England.
Right. I love seeing old maps.
You see Scotland, right? So the modern day Scotland sort of goes up and across almost into a right angle and then up and around like that. The ancient map of Scotland goes up, down, around, up and down, round, and like almost, like a big bulge at the top.
It's like they exaggerated it based on ships and how they thought it needed. Like, it's weird. Like, they had no accurate measurements.
But it's also because of the fact that they did it in one or two ways. They would have either the ships go around the outside of the country and sail the edge of it. But of course, if you're sailing the edge of a country, things are going to get a bit distorted anyway. And the other thing is they did it from, actually marching it.
Yeah.
And the problem with the two different ways of doing it is one gives you a very quick perspective relatively. And the other one, you don't get that distance to be able to look at the landmass and go, okay, yeah, that bit goes straight across there. Then it, sort of curves off up there.
Right.
All they know is they go up, they turn left. They turn left, they turn right. And they used to use like stars for navigational purposes. And because of that, obviously stars move as well.
Move with the time of year, everything.
Yeah, exactly. So it was never accurate. But yeah, so the way I've laid out sort of the civilizations, I started with the individual races or species, whatever sort of terminology you want to use for it.
Sure.
I started with the biomes. So mountain, river, forest, underdark, plains, and urban. And I went through the different races that would be playable in my campaign. If players wanted to add a race in, it didn't really affect it at all. I could just throw them in one of the biomes. And then I had a little bit, literally just one paragraph of a little bit of information about that species in this world. So, for example, the Aarakocra. The Aarakocra are a static tribe found in the highest part of the mountains, rarely contacted by outsiders. Those who do can never recall what, why, when, where, or how. All they remember is that they met them and that they're a monarchy society. So that's literally just a little quick snippet of what that civilization might look like, and that's literally done as an outline, as a very, very quick reference note to me,
Yeah.
so that if the players decide to go off and explore the world unexpectedly, I've got something that I can spitball off of and sort of roll with.
Yeah.
I actually made a bit more work than I planned to in this campaign, because you know how most people run with one pantheon of probably about
Yeah.
8 or 9 gods.
I have a main pantheon in my world, but I'm open to anything people want to bring religion-wise to my world.
So, so a lot of people run one pantheon, and if somebody wants to bring something else in, you'll add that to that one pantheon.
Right.
Not me. I have 3 pantheons,
Mm-hmm.
3 different belief systems.
Yeah.
And each one has the death, knowledge, life, nature, tempest, trickery, and war, which are obviously the paladin. The different.
So, do you have anybody who's agnostic in your world? Do you have anybody who doesn't believe in any religions in your world? Do you have those as well? Or do you just have, look, there's 3 pantheons and pretty much everybody believes these 3 things? One of these 3 things.
There are certainly those who are agnostic. Otherwise, it would be a massive plot hole. Because the fact is that obviously Mazra being a deity now, if faith in, if people go, oh no, Mazra is a load of cods, well, look, there's no such deity. However, this deity of not life and fertility must exist.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really work.
So somebody couldn't be like, no, that's just some super powerful being. I mean, there's other beings in your world that are super powerful. Why couldn't this one just be a more powerful one that's not necessarily a god?
The thing is,
as a player, I would totally with you like that. I'd make your life hard. I'd be like, no, my guy doesn't believe in a god. That is just an alien being.
Yeah. So, I mean,
I'm kidding. I wouldn't.
It's certainly something for me to sort of think about. Believe it or not, you've given me sort of some ideas.
That's what I do with my
that would still be a belief that he exists, and the idea is that the belief in him is failing,
right?
Or her is failing, because I haven't even decided if it's a man or a woman yet. But the belief in Mazra is failing, and so the initial construct of what this treaty was built upon is failing.
Right.
The belief that everyone can have their fair share, the belief that there can be peace if you just all work together as one huge society. And the idea is that the human race is highly prejudiced against all the native nations. Because again, it's that idea that the humans in this tale are the aliens. That they're not from around these parts. They've traveled from another continent, worlds away, and decided they wanted to settle here. So it's all very much an exploratory thing. Obviously, with everything going on at the moment as well, I'm being very, very careful about terms I use and things like that.
You're better than me.
The whole situation. I mean,
yeah,
I don't want to intentionally upset anybody.
Right.
Unintentionally upset anybody. So I'm very, very conscious about things that are going on. The most annoying thing is because one of the reasons I wanted to find my map, and this is how sort of paranoid I am, if you like, about upsetting people. One of the towns in my set in the first act of this setting is called Coronia, and I wanted to change that.
It's not the first one. I think in a Disney cartoon, it's something like that too. What is it? Tangled or something like that? The one where she's got the hair.
Oh, is it? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
The same thing. So she's locked up and kept in seclusion to protect her, and the town she's from is like Corona or something like that. It's an old cartoon from like 25 years ago.
I mean,
but I'm right on the nose.
I made this map well before Corona was ever even thought of. I made this map like 2-3 years ago, and But again, I'm that paranoid. I don't want to upset anybody or offend anybody. But again, it's given me the perfect position to have a plague.
That's true.
If I fancy throwing a plague in there, I know where it's happening. You know. Um,
Can always rename it. Names are
yeah,
easy to change.
but the thing is, it's in a certain text font.
Yeah.
It was done on Photoshop, and I've lost the PSD file for it, so I
Oh
can't
no.
actually change it very easily. Uh, but I mean, what I was going to say to you is, how do you find using children as a plot device? So, for example, one of the things I done in the Rebirth campaign
Hmm.
was I had a, a guild of what was effectively demon hunters,
Hmm.
and I can't remember what was causing it now, but there was something possessing the children, and obviously children are a very very sort
Hmm.
of emotional thing for a lot of people, and you have to be quite careful in the way you instigate them.
Right.
And um, one of the things I was done, and I'm trying to remember the rhyme now. Um, oh, what was it? There was a rhyme I made up. Oh, that was it. So it went something along the lines of half a pound of blood in the pot, half a pound of people. Oh, what was it? When it was basically half a pound of blood in a pot, half a pound of people, and then something along the lines of when when the sunrise comes, death to the children, or something like that.
Hmm.
And basically, the idea was that this thing was possessing these children, and then as the dawn rose, that possessed child would pass away.
Hmm.
And I was very, very careful about how I used this as a plot device. But the players handled it very, very well. I did speak to them afterwards and was like, look, I hope you're all okay. If anything has upset you or affected you, please approach me about it. Please talk to me about it. Because before I had started using safety devices in my games.
Right.
It's before safety devices in games was even ever mentioned in a wide scale way.
Right.
Um,
So for at least the last 5 years, maybe 4 years. No, it's been 5.5 years. Every time I play with somebody new, I don't like. I love the Monty Cook like consent and gaming thing. I think that's great. I don't go over that. Even now, I still don't use that, but it's a nice guideline for people that aren't familiar with how to gauge what your players are into or not into. But for the last 5.5 years or so, I've always asked new players, what is off limits? So right off the bat, I tell people when I run a game, I try to run it PG-13. If there's swearing, cool.
yeah,
I
this,
avoid most gratuitous, not
mm,
gratuitous. Anything that gets too romantic or whatever, I try to fade
yeah.
to black. Certain like if it looks like it's getting into torture, we paraphrase rather than getting into some of the details, and then fade to black. So I avoid some
Yeah.
of that stuff. Something like that though, like adding in like a creepy, like think of like a scary movie like The Grudge or The Ring. I'm all for kind of stuff like that. However, I don't know if my wife is. I haven't talked to her about it. She usually doesn't have many things that are off limits to her, and she plays in a lot of my
Yeah.
games. And she likes scary movies and stuff like that. But since we've had kids, and even for me a little bit, there's my brain has changed as to how I react to stuff that 10 years ago I'd have been like, oh, that's creepy. I love it. Now I'm like, oh, that might be a little bit too close to home. But I think it depends on what it is. I like the way you explained it, other than it sounding kind of creepy up front, the the fact that they just die in the morning, that doesn't like impact me. Like that
Yeah.
doesn't like
Yeah.
hit me at my core. Whereas who knows, maybe if it was something like, oh, there's this plague, and
You
you
see,
bring it too
the
close to
thought,
reality of right now, that might
yeah.
make me go, I don't want to deal with that. Like, I don't want to play
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, this is where we tread the fine line of what is fun and what will our players accept. I
Yeah.
mean, I always warn my players beforehand. I play my games at 18 plus.
Yeah.
There are adult themes throughout.
Hmm.
I avoid the really dark side of humanity for
Yeah.
obvious reasons. I've had games where I've introduced that into it, and
Hmm.
I've had players go, "Look, that I wasn't expecting that," and I've
Yeah.
gone, hands up. I apologize. I don't use anything as an excuse, but for me, my very first game had that in it,
Hmm.
and I was like, okay, is this normal? Is this something that players generally expect?
I think it's normal. I think there's
And
so many people out there that run various kinds of games,
I
you
mean,
know?
it was to the point that you cross the line.
Hmm.
And I didn't see it until afterwards, until I had people approach me about it, and I wholeheartedly held my hands up and went, you know what, I totally get that.
Hmm.
But for me, again, being autistic, gauging that kind of what's right, what's wrong, what
Sure.
is allowed is very, very challenging. It's a challenging aspect. And so when I even at the audition stages of my games, I go, look, I could cross a line. There's a very real possibility that I will cross a line at some point for you.
Hmm.
It's important to me that you warn me when we're approaching that line, because I won't gauge it. It will completely wash over me. And I think this is where it's very important for communication to be open at a table, and for people to be able to say, look, no, I'm not okay with this. Can we
Yeah.
move past it? Can we fade to black or something?
Hmm.
Because I mean, for all you know, that if somebody has lost a child, say for example,
Hmm.
and you're not aware of it, that storyline
True.
might be too much to handle.
Very true. I didn't even think of that. And I know a lot of people who have experienced that. So yeah,
So
that makes sense.
so that somebody else had a similar thing where they, as a child, had a pet dog, and they regularly watched this pet dog being abused.
Hmm.
And so when they went into the woods as characters, a pack of wolves set upon the players, and the player went, I can't handle this. They
Hmm.
said, this is a line for me that I can't deal with, because it's
Sure.
too close to that childhood memory. And they went, okay, it's not wolves, it's crocodiles. you know,
Right.
and just that tiny little switch pulled it away from one thing, turned it into something else, and actually made that player feel more comfortable. And obviously, if you can't get that balance right, it's going to be a very, very difficult time for you.
Yeah.
And for me, I have a hard enough time with social interactions as it is,
Hmm.
which is another reason why I play my games. It's another reason why my son wants to start his own YouTube channel,
Hmm.
because we are both autistic, and a lot of people aren't actually aware of what exactly that means. They know of it. They
Hmm.
know that perhaps it's a difficulty with social interaction. It's a difficulty perhaps with communicating or talking, but it's also so much more than that.
Hmm.
Um, and he turned around to me last year, and
My nephew's on the spectrum,
yeah.
and his brain is amazing. Like some of the stuff, like
Oh
he's
God.
really into mechanical things,
Yeah.
mathematics. Like it's amazing. And talking to my sister about it and stuff, I don't know if she shared something. She shared something a while back that it was like, yeah, you guys see the things he's not good at, but like we see all the stuff that he's exceptional at or something. And I was like, it's true.
Mm,
Like, what some might view one way, but there's a lot of awesome stuff that comes out of it too, you know?
mm. I mean, my son's brain is incredible. He turned
Yeah.
around to me in lockdown when we were in temporary accommodation, or even a bit before that. And he said, "Daddy," I said, "Yes." He goes, "I want to create my own YouTube channel so other autistic children don't feel so alone."
That makes
And
sense.
that broke my heart,
Mm-hmm.
because to me, as a parent that says, "Daddy, I feel alone.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like nobody understands me." And it's like, how do you explain to an 8-year-old that actually kids just see him as another kid?
Right.
They don't see the disability. They don't understand the social
Right.
difficulties that he has. And for me, I actually grew up undiagnosed. I'm still officially undiagnosed, but I know it.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the similarities between my son and I. And again, for people to experience a game with me is very, very different, because after every game, I turn around to my players and I will go, "How did you find it? Were there any issues you had in the game? Is there anything you would like to discuss about the game? Or generally, is everything okay? Is there any problems?" Because again, I can't gauge it unless somebody tells me. And I've
Right.
had people sit at my table, have an issue, and sit there silent for 6+ sessions. And, unless I ask them, some people won't approach you. They won't tell you. So again,
Correct.
it's
Yeah.
that conversation is important after every game. Ask your
And that's for
players.
life in general. Like relationships. How many people do you know who've been in relationships where they're not happy and they just don't communicate it to their partner? Like it's the same thing. Like it's
Yeah.
everything.
I mean,
Friendships. Like for
I
instance,
mean,
I don't need to talk to a friend. Like I can wait 3 years and talk to him and nothing changed. I still love them to death. But
mm.
I have friends that aren't the same way. They need you to talk to them within such a certain amount of time, or they think that something's wrong and that you're not their friend. You
I
know?
mean that comes down to sort of anxiety and that kind of
Yeah.
side of things. I mean,
But it's communication in general.
oh yeah,
You
yeah, yeah,
know?
massively.
Mm-hmm.
Communication is a huge part of life. I mean, I was married to my son's mother, and that broke down because things got to a point where I couldn't talk. I was severely
Mm-hmm.
depressed. I just couldn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it broke down in the long run. And now I'm in a relationship, and one of the hardest things for me is to sit down and go, "Look, I've got a problem. Can we talk about it? Can we talk about this issue?"
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm with somebody who's not used to that, and it kind of, when I do it, it kind of comes up defense. If someone, and I'm the same, if someone approaches me and goes, "Look, I've got an issue. Why? What's wrong? What have I done? Who
Yeah.
said what to you?" And it's that initial defense mechanism that we all have built into us. But as soon as you go, "Okay, what's the problem?"
Right.
And you approach it from a calmer perspective. And I think that's the most important thing,
Yeah.
especially at a games table where you're meant to be having fun.
Yep.
If there's a problem, approach it calmly. Don't get snotty. Don't get agitated. Don't feel like, just because you're the DM, you know it all. Or,
Mm-hmm.
I even say to my players, I'm still learning the rules. After 5 years of running the game, I don't know half the rules. I couldn't tell you sort of damage of an Eldritch Blast, which is one of the most common spells that's used, because I've always been a DM. I've always seen it from the DM's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, I'm terrible at knowing like all the different spells and what they do and how they work because I don't play it. I'm usually the DM, like you're saying. So if I
yeah,
do it, it's like there's a couple I go to and I'm like, all right, I'm using this for my monster, my wizard guy and NPC. But yeah, I don't know a lot of the spells. People are always surprised by that.
yeah. And this is what I say to people all the time on Facebook when they go, "Oh, well, I want to start to be a DM, but I don't know the rules." I just comment back and go, "I've been DMing for 5+ years. I couldn't tell you the rules for the most basic spells."
Right.
I know. I mean, I don't even know basic monster stat blocks, like your everyday monsters that people
You
use all
don't
the
need to know
time.
them at all, though.
No,
That's
exactly.
the
This
thing.
is the thing.
You just role play and have some fun. And if everyone else had fun, you did a great job.
Yeah,
Nobody cares that
exactly.
you didn't have 30 hit points for that monster that's supposed to have
And
30 hit
this
points.
this is
Like,
why. I mean, I had a DM coach in the Rebirth campaign. I had somebody who really knows the rules very, very well, to fine detail, and she herself had been a DM for some time. The problem with having a DM coach in a game is you're giving them that permission to be a bit of a rules lawyer. Now, it's okay to a certain extent, but it gets to the point where rules lawyering overburdens the game. Because I had this really great idea for an encounter where they were chasing, I think it was a kobold through the desert.
Yeah.
And he pulled out these 2 spell scrolls. One was going to make him fly, the other was going to make him ginormous. So they'd have a ginormous flying kobold. What a fantastic idea. And when I said about him activating the 2 scrolls at the same time, this particular player went, "Oh, he can't do that." I went, "What?" She went, "Oh no, it's in the rules like this." And this is why I now say to my players, yes, I'm DM. No, I do not know all the rules. I don't mind if you say to me, "Look, this is how it's normally done. Is this intentional or is this a mistake?" That's absolutely fine. And
it's a mistake that is so much cooler making the mistake, though.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's detriment to the players that's unintentional, and that's when it becomes a problem.
By the way, I would have been the player to point out the rule. That's me at the table. I don't care if you tell me, no, we're doing them both at the same time. I just am one of those people that, for me, I just am like, well, do they know the rule? I should tell them so that they at least know. And in the future, if they want to do it differently, they can. But it annoys the crap out of my wife. She hates it. She's like, I know enough D&D. Leave me alone. Don't tell me the rules.
Yeah, but this is the thing. I'm always open to players going, is that right? Is that how you intend the game to be going? Yeah, that's absolutely fine. That's fully what I intended. Yeah. No, it's not. I made a big mistake, but I'm not going to tell you that. But there's a certain way of doing it, and sometimes it can come across as a bit obnoxious if you turn around to your players turn around to you as a DM and go, "Oh no, that's not how it's done. I know better. Here's the rule book." Rah, rah, rah. And you go, "No."
Yeah, I used to be. So I started that way because of my brother-in-law running 2nd edition. He didn't get all the rules right, but he was very strict about the rules. So as a player, you feel like, so for example, I like to do things more narrative. I don't care about the rules as much. So like in it, I was like, oh, I want to jump off my horse and attack. Well, it's not in the book. And the horse is about this tall, so it's a 10-foot drop, so you're taking damage. And I'm like, what? Like, if I knew that it was going to cause me damage, I probably wouldn't have done it,
Yeah.
So, and there were always things like that. And then, just certain things were like so strict by the book, and then other things he would like get wrong about the rules, and it would drive me nuts inside. And it changed me. I've been playing games since the late 90s. Was never a rules lawyer until 6 years ago. And then ever since then, I've done it with my wife as a DM. I don't think I've done it to anybody other than those 2, but but it's like,
your wife's a special case then, is she?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly play games, or mostly run games, so I don't get to play a lot, but I've never done it to anybody online at all that I can think of. That's not true. I did it to Matt Click, who's edited for Wizards of the Coast before. that was when 5e first came out. It was the Provokers campaign. If anybody's watched it, you know what I'm talking about. But I didn't do it like in a disruptive way at all.
Yeah. It comes down to that respect. There's certain ways of doing things. There's
my wife
ways
always
of not
says
doing
it's
things.
disruptive. So even when she said it was disruptive, instead of like saying it at the table, I would text it to her so that I wasn't being disruptive to the game. And then she's like, she'd look and then she'd just set it aside and give me a glare, and I stopped doing that too.
That glare of, how comfortable is your sofa? Would you like to be sleeping on it tonight?
Oh, dude, I have no problem sleeping on a sofa. She hates when I sleep on a sofa. Like she's never been the get out of bed, go sleep in the sofa thing. So I'm
No, I
unfortunate for
think
that,
if my other half turned around to me and told me to go and sleep on the sofa, she'd have a problem because normally when she's around here, her daughter's on my sofa. So if she told me to go and sleep on the sofa, I'd be telling her daughter to go and sleep in the bed, and she'd get a worse night's sleep than I would.
right. That's funny. So we've been doing it for about an hour and a half. So I could talk to you all night, like all this stuff. I love
Yeah,
talking about it. So we will definitely have to do this again sometime.
100%.
I would love to hear more about your world, and if you ever started doing YouTube videos just about your world, I would probably watch. Just so you know. So
Well, my whole thing is I'm running the campaign to help me flesh out a bit more of, because there's only so much prep you can do and only so much you can do and things like that. So I'm playing the game to try and flesh out the world a bit more. And eventually what I will be doing is probably running another campaign in the same world, like we were discussing earlier, but with a better understanding and a better idea of how my world is functioning. You know, what's the socio-economic landscape like, you know, and things like this. And I mean, the thing about it being a DM is as much you can do as much prep as you like. You know, you can have absolutely no prep. You can have no idea of your world. You can literally start in one little tavern in the middle of an unnamed town, in the middle of an unnamed kingdom, in the middle of an unnamed mountain range. The fact is, as you go through, you'll develop your story, you'll develop your world. Or you can be the other side of the coin where you develop an entire campaign, an entire world. And, you know, I would quite happily do like DM creation streams with you, like talking solely about like the subject of world creation. I mean, for me, I love exploring sort of the geological side of a world creation. So how are the mountain ranges affecting trade in this town?
right.
You know, how do the river, how is a town in the middle of like nowhere with a steady water supply surviving?
Right.
You know, and things like this. And it's always, you know, sort of learning curves and things like that.
Yeah. Cameron says he'd watch it too. Worlds are fun to learn about. I agree. I love it. There's oh gosh, I can't remember the channel. It was a podcast that I used to listen to, and he started putting it up on Skywalker Studios or something like that. I don't know. He used to do a podcast talking about his world, and it used to inspire so many ideas. So I love hearing about that stuff. But anyway, so Dave, I want to give you a chance to, you know, plug your links. I do have them in the description below. I will probably put them in the pinned comment tomorrow sometime. And then, so feel free to plug your stuff.
Yeah, so guys, as ever, my name is David. I am the captain of the SS Adventurer. You can find us over on twitch.tv/SS Adventurer. You can follow me on Twitter at SS_Adventurer. You can also find us on YouTube, which the link is down in the section below. We are sort of live tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. GMT time, so British summertime. So do come and watch it. If there is no technical hitches this time, I will be uploading episode 3 to YouTube. You can catch obviously the start of the campaign. I might be shooting Juce a message over as well, seeing if we can do some kind of collaborative campaign creation, just to sort of see what we can come up with, if you like. Do sort of like a I think that would be a really good idea, because I mean, if people want to sit and watch talk about world creation and how it works, I think that would be a great idea, just to like have a stream solely collaborating on like a campaign and building a campaign from scratch and showing people you know, how that comes together.
I love that idea. I love it. And you know, we could totally bring like maybe 2 more DMs and try to get various perspectives too.
I mean, this is what I was about to say. Like, if you're excuse me, if you're building a world by yourself, your world is yourself.
Yes.
If you collaborate on a world, your world becomes everyone's personalities all mixed into
Right.
one, and it's something I've wanted to do for a long time. So I think I'm going to shoot you a message after this and see if we
Go
can
for it. Yeah.
arrange like one night a week or something that we can do a collaboration to try and create something and see what happens.
I'm definitely down for the idea. I will tell you, the only night I don't stream right now is Mondays. But that is typically when I film and edit videos. I try to film on the weekend, but it's just so hard. And then I end up scrambling Monday, and then I get it up Tuesday. That's kind of how it goes right now. But no, send me a message. We will try to work something out. I will also see if maybe there's a couple other people that might be interested in coming on too. Because I love the idea, and I've wanted to do something like that with a few other people in the past. I started collaborate and listen.
Yeah, I was about to go.
Vanilla Ice.
Collaborate and listen.
Stop, collaborate and listen. So anyways, once again, thanks for coming on. Guys, check out those links. We will have a game tomorrow night, 8:30 Eastern time. That'll go for probably 2 to 3 hours. And
so come up to me, watch me, then go over to him.
Exactly.
As I'm finishing, he'll be starting, so it's all good.
See, it's perfect. And yeah, so go check him out on Twitch, YouTube, all the good stuff. With that, thanks, Dave, for coming on.
No worries, no problem at all.
Thank you guys for watching. See you guys next time. Game on.